Uh, just above Cameron's, there were a lot of gold workings, and as in keeping with nearly all the West Coast workings anyhow, and later years, and sometimes in the real early days, real early gold rushes, there were Chinese there, but there was certainly a big influx of Chinese after the 1870s. And just above Cameron's, in a straight line from where we lived, wouldn't be more than about 3.5 miles, was a creek called Deep Creek. Of course, it's not deep at all, it's very shallow. The miners often did that sort of thing, and I'd say the opposite. They called someone tiny, and he was a monster. But anyhow, we were looking for Chinese camps, because that was the 70s, and the bottle craze was in. And we found this Chinese camp, and for a start I could only find broken bits of glass. But then I found in this race running around the camp and down the bank, basically a drainage race to keep the camp dry, was full of bottles and glass and Chinese pots, and it was probably the Chinese camp where I found the most Chinese rice whiskies, the lovely conical shaped and beautiful glazing on them. And you could say they were made yesterday. That's how nice they looked. But down in where the camp was, on the original ground, only a wee bit of ground left, because all the rest had been sluiced away. It was so wealthy. In the claim, I seen this thing, which I thought was some sort of religious thing, because it was conical shaped. When I got down to it, it had a little entrance at the bottom and an opening at the top. And as I scraped around it with a pick, I found some ashes, including a wee bit of coal. I thought, well, that's got to be a forge. And they use forges like that to sharpen the pick. Instead of grinding the picks sharp, they'd sharpen them up, belt them out with a hammer, temper them, which means they've waited till it cooled to a certain level, then cool it instantly. If you leave steel to cool too long, it'll get too soft. And nearly all miners and nearly all European and all over the world, they all knew what by sight. So once the metal got a bit of bluing on it, you cooled it quickly, and you had a nice high tensile piece of steel. And my father knew that, and my grandfather on the other side, and both grandfathers, they all knew how to temper steel, and a lot of them knew how to weld steel, blacksmithing. But so anyhow, I worked out it was a Chinese forge, and it's in the book about the Chinese on the West Coast by Julia Bradshaw. It's in there. And then years later I seen a photograph of almost an identical forge made out of stone and clay. So they got the clay and the stone from their workings, and sometimes what they did is they used the blue reef, the Papa reef, or the bottom. They crunched it up, mixed that up with the water and stones, and once you lit a fire and it would harden everything up. So it made a very, very small and very efficient forge, which you could run with wood. Wood won't melt steel, but if you turn to charcoal, it will. And if you can get coal from somewhere, then you can do just about everything, from welding to tensioning steel to repairing all your tools. And that's exactly what it was for, because when you're working shingle and a lot of it's quartz and granite, it just wears everything away. So you need somewhere where you can repair your gear, and that's what this forge was for.